Hey guys, Jay here. So in this video today, I want to make a final build guide kind of video for the Lazy Ancestor. This is my cast when stun character, the AFK Simulacrum character that I use for the Legacy of Frisia. This is my first character of the league, and I really want to play more build because I don't think we will ever get these ascendancy again. So I have a lot more ideas that I want to try out. And so this character is right now at a point where I am very happy with it. I have invested a total of 20 divine into the character. Granted that I do some like self-craft and some gamble stuff, so maybe the actual, if you want to replicate this exact character, you might need to spend a little bit more. But in fact, I have personally spent 20 divine on it. I just want to have a disclaimer. It is not going to be guaranteed that you can replicate this exact character with 20 divine because prices may change, and some of the gear that I have that I snipe from trade that I craft myself, you might not be able to recreate it with the exact same amount of currency. It's not going to be too big of a difference though. So 20 divine, I would say 25 divine is probably a fair price point if you want to recreate this one, maybe a little bit more if you are lazy and you don't want to do a lot of crafting. For example, the Flask, if you really want to save a lot of time, you should just buy it from the market. It can be a little bit expensive. Self-craft is going to be much cheaper, right? So anyway, let's just get into the build. So first of all, I should go for the items, right? So for the items, let me actually go for the in-game version. I want to go through the items in the in-game. So items, first of all, is the 2 rings. These 2 rings are mandatory for the build. This ring is the most single target that you can have for this build because it allows you to use a penance mark. This is a skill, a mark skill. So you put on a monster, this mark will stay forever. So you don't have to cast it a second time. And when you actually hit an enemy with this mark on, it will spawn 3 Shackle Phantasm, and those monsters are enemies. They will attack you and they will stun you because you set up it to be that way, so you will trigger more with cast when stun, right? So this is for pure single target in situation when you fight a boss. For example, the content that I farmed the most right now is Ultimatum and Simulacrum. In Ultimatum, normally you don't need to do anything. You still can AFK all the way through, except for picking the mods. Even in the boss fight, you don't really need to put this one on because the boss actually hit you quite frequently. But in Simulacrum, in particular, when you fight Kosis and Oniphobia, those bosses, first of all, they are very tanky in later waves. Second, they do not hit you that often. There's a lot of time where they actually don't hit you for a pretty long period, or they attack very slowly in the case of Oniphobia. So you want to put the penance mark on them, which will allow you to trigger a lot more because the phantasm spawn from the mark is going to attack you. It is going to proc the castman stun, right? So this is the Hateful Accursor, the first ring. The second one is Valerian, and I am going for a corruption. This is an extremely cheap item. So I'm going for a little bit of corruption here. Let me just actually, I forgot to put on Awakened POE trade. So maybe you can do some price check as well. Right, so if we go for, you don't need to worry about anything on the roll. I really want cannot be ignite in here because there's no better way for me to deal with ignite on this character. So I go for cannot be ignited in here and I can just forget about it, right? Right now it is quite cheap. If you go for cannot be ignited, you will see that the price can go anywhere from 30 chaos, 50 chaos, anything less than 1 divine. This corruption is insane. Early on, you can accept to die sometimes and you can just use a normal version, which is going to be 1 chaos. Later, you should upgrade to this version, right? This is the amulet. This is a rare amulet. Because we are a ancestral commander, we already have the Defiance of Destiny effect. We already have this healing effect from the Defiance of Destiny. So you don't need to use the Defiance of Destiny in here. You can use a rare amulet. Go for life, resistant, and almost most importantly, you should go for +1 level of all cold skill gem. If you can have a reflected mist version of this kind of amulet, and it can go to like 200, 300 life, a lot more resistant, +2 to level of cold skill gem, you are going to have a lot more than this one. But as a base, I am very happy with this amulet. Looks very good. I bought it for, well, I don't know how much, but what you should look for is this. Okay, that is, yeah, you can go for this one and then try to have as much resistance as possible, right? What you should search for is like 100 life, +1 to cold, and then you can go for as much resistance as possible, depending on your budget, right? Body armor is going to be the brass dome. Why the brass dome? Brass dome actually have a lot of nice thing with the downside. So the most nice is you take no extra damage from critical strike. You can completely ignore critical strike from enemy. You still got crit, but you don't take extra damage. So you take the exact same amount of damage as you normally do with a normal non-crit hit. It also gives you 5% maximum, up to 5% maximum elemental resistances, which is a lot. And then it gives a shit ton of armor. So I really like this chest. I just go for it. And because it is a unique, you can fish for, or you can just buy a bunch of them and try to corrupt and get, for example, in this case, +2 to level of socketed AoE gems, +2 to level of duration gem also work, or +1 to socketed gems also work. Any combination of those both is going to be the end game version of this one, which is going to be insanely stronger, right? The boots. Right now I am having inextricable fate. Let me see. You don't care about the rolls. You can go for +1 endurance charges. There is not a lot of them, but if you don't want to, you can just go for one of them and try to get like 100 life, which is the maximum. It's 5 to 10 chaos. The one maximum endurance charges is very nice. It looks fancy, but you don't need it. I have it because I'm probably one of the first person to buy it. It was 30 chaos, by the way. So yeah, if you really want to go min-max, then you can go for the corruption. The belt, as much life and resistance as possible. The helmet, to be honest, as much life and resistance as possible is probably what I would recommend you guys to go, because right now this is like a support cast when stun setup. It is not going for a lot of damage. I am getting cast when stun with Ice Nova Frostbolt, Cold to Fire, and Combustion. I decided to go for Combustion here, so it reduced the enemy's resistance by 10%. So it makes this main setup for Vortex of Projection deals a lot more damage. Vortex of Projection is going to be the main skill. If you see the amount of damage from Vortex of Projection and from Ice Nova, you will see that Vortex of Projection actually have a lot more damage. The difference, yeah, it's just huge, right? So this is for the main damage. The supported by level 20 hypothermia, the crit here, the crit chance 2% is completely useless for this build, by the way. I just happen to have it. But hypothermia is not really necessary. If you are tight on budget, you should not try to go for this one. You just get like life resistances. On a armor base is ideal. You want a lot of armor, the more the better, right? And gloves, same story, life and resistances, and we try to get some of the exposure stuff. I think probably right now when I rethink this, I should probably drop this helmet. I should go for another one, a normal one, so I can put Eldritch implicit on it. I think it's probably going to be better. It's going to be stronger overall for the character. Right. Next is the weapon. Right, the weapon, one of the weapons, I'm using 2 scepters. So one is Dark Seer. You only care about if you go for this particular version because you have the agnostic in the skill tree. You always have 0 energy shield, so you can go for any Dark Seer with a life roll. You only care about getting 2 life per level. So if you are level 100, you have 200 life from it, and the other stat are the same for all versions of the scepter. The other roll don't matter. We don't have mana and we don't have any shield, so ignore it, right? What we care about is just +2 life. Right now, let me see how much it is. I only care about this one. So 3 divine. If you don't go for 3 divine, if you just want this 1 life, for example, it is less than 1 divine. What I did on this scepter, by the way, is I bought one with 1 life and then I spent a divine on it. So there is a 50-50 chance for you to actually divine it to 2. So I saved 1 divine there. But you can be unlucky, and if you don't get it in 2 tries, then you will lose money. So it's up to you, right? At least that is what I did. So I want to just let you know there is a way you can gamble a little bit. And last but not least, it is this scepter. If you look at this scepter, it's actually not that amazing. So what it have is the base oscillating scepter. It gives you elemental overload. So if the skill deals a critical strike in the past 8 seconds, it would deal 40% more damage. And because we cast many times with around, I think 10%, 9% critical strike chance, so every like 100, every 11 or 12 cast, it will crit once on average every 8 seconds. That pretty much guaranteed to happen all the time. So we will always have 40% more damage from elemental overload, and we don't need to path to elemental overload. So that is very good, right? What I did is I bought this scepter as a base. I spent 60 chaos on it. It can be around that number, but you need the base. And then you use some essence of woe, obviously the highest version. It is only 1 chaos each. So you do some of them. I stop here because I got tier 1 added cold damage to spell, flat added cold, and tier 1 added fire damage is actually okay. So because we are a cold build converted to fire, so we can actually benefit the same way from both cold and fire damage. That is why this scepter is very easy to roll. You will probably just spend like a couple of essences and you will have this one. You can have a lot better. You can have +1 to all spell. You can have +1 to all cold spell. Those are going to be the best. In the end game, if you want to, you can craft those kind of scepter. You can have spell damage, +2 to all gems, and then like some nice stuff like increased damage, flat damage. I'm not going for that. That is going to be very, very expensive. So this is good enough for me, at least for now. But the room for improvement is very, very plenty. And for the suffixes of this weapon, there's actually not a lot of things that you can benefit from. So I would just craft an additional resistant, because if you have not noticed yet, we actually use quite some unique items. And we cannot get resist on a lot of the slot. So that means some resistances here might be very nice, right? Balance out your resistances with the rare gears. On the flask, we want 3 elemental flasks, right? All of the flasks here I have is at least gain 2 charges when you're hit by an enemy. Ideally, it should be 3. Like this one is insanely good. I bought this one for 50 chaos. I think it is very, very worth it. But what you should want in the end for this character is a flask with a chance to avoid being shocked. Ideally over 50%. I have 51. I will explain in a little bit. This is a little bit of elemental resistances. I don't think this is necessary. I think the best one is probably increased armor. But if you are lacking some resistance, this can be helpful. Regen, this is very good. Actually, this one you can also replace by the crafted modifier that 15% of damage taken is leech as alive. That is pretty insane as well. I just did not have it and I don't really need to invest into it. But that is a lot of extra recovery, and it happened all the time because we actually take damage all the time. And I use a basalt flask because this build for the Ancestor Commander version, we already have a lot of armor like the Jugg, but we also have this note, toughened skin. No, actually this note, born under fire, sorry. Nearby enemies convert 50% of their physical damage to fire. So all the damage that you are going to take, physical damage, the enemy already deals half of it as fire. So you pretty much have 50% conversion to to fire already, fist to fire. That is why I don't really think the granite is going to do a lot. We already take half of the physical damage. So I decided to go for the basalt. The basalt has actually one very nice thing is when you used it, or when it actually used because it reached full charges, it would taunt nearby enemies. So there's a lot of the time where there are random enemies that are a little bit out of aggro range because their aggro range is shorter than other enemies. They will get taunted. So I decided to go for this one. It is minimal difference in terms of defense against the granite, but I really like it. Right? And last but not least, I actually am using a sulfur flask because I don't need the amethyst anymore. If you don't cap your chaos resistant already, I capped my chaos rest in the final version. So if you don't have cap chaos resistant, you should use a amethyst flask. And block and stun recovery is nice. Reduce effect of curses is nice as well. Reduce effect of curses, by the way, if you are on consecrated ground. If you read here, you will see that on consecrated ground, you already have 50% reduced curse effect. If you have an additional close to 50%, the curses actually does not do anything to you pretty much. So, and this is not the only source of consecrated ground you are having in this build. You also have purifying flame, which shit out a lot of consecrated ground all the time. Okay. For the gems, main setup, Voltaic projection, code to fire. Why I decided to go for avatar fire? Because I want to utilize these strength node that I have a lot of, because they can only tattoo to be fire damage. That is the only damage tattoo that we can benefit from. So I need to convert the damage to fire, and so I go for avatar fire, and thus I need to convert the rest, which is 50%, which is taken care of by the code to fire. Should have quality. Quality is going to be damage. I don't have quality in a lot of these, so cast when stun, probably the first priority to have quality on as well. This actually, you know what? Let's just do some fun thing here. And we have a 23%. That is better. That is 3% triggered. Nice. So you should have cast when stun with quality, high level in here. This is the most important one because it's the main source of damage. Awaken Elemental Focus. I just leveled this up to level 5. I got this. It's probably the first Awaken gem that I got. And it is level 5 now. And it gives +1 to support elemental skill. You can do Awaken Edit Code as well. I just recently bought this one. If you don't want to level up this thing, then you can go for Hypothermia. But at level 5, it will give you an additional +1. In Simulacrum, it actually levels up very, very quickly. So, and another one is Awaken Fire Penetration. So Awaken Fire Penetration at level 5 is going to give you exposure. So I can do some other thing in here. I don't need exposure on the glove. But right now it's level 3 only. So exposure on the glove it is. For the other setup, cast when stunned, Ice Nova Frostbolt, Combustion, and Code to Fire. This is the secondary support / damage. And very important, cast when stunned with Frostbolt, slower projectile and greater volley. This is the best setup for Frostbolt that I found. We used to try return projectiles, not working as well. And this seems to be the most amount of single target when we actually need it. With the slower projectile, so the Frostbolt moves slowly and it got overlapped better on a single target. Next is a utility setup, cast when stunned. I am having it with flammability, purifying flame, just for the consecrated ground, so we always have it. A steel skin, so we deal with bleed. This is very important. Don't use immortal cold. And technically, if you just care about the total number of effective HP pool, steel skin is not as much as molten shell, but steel skin have a ability to remove bleeding and grant immunity to bleeding on its duration. So because of the cooldown is 3 seconds and the duration is 1.5 seconds, every 7.5 seconds we will have more than half of the time, which is 4.5 seconds, to be immune or the bleeding got removed. So we basically, this just helped with bleeding entirely. We don't need to worry about it. And on my two weapons, I have Righteous Fire. This I only turn on when I do Simulacrum, when I fight the bosses, because in Simulacrum, first of all, we want a lot more damage, so it clears faster. Second, for Simulacrum, there will never be a less recovery or a no regen mod that can be rolled on any wave of Simulacrum. So we can safely turn on Righteous Fire. Works really well, right? So it just gives more damage. It doesn't deal damage directly, but because it is not supported by anything, but it gives 41% more damage with this current one. Zealotry is linked to Eternal Blessing. I should have quality here as well. So Zealotry is the highest damage aura, so I put it on here. I just tried Anger, I just tried Hatred actually doesn't do anything. I just tried Anger, and I don't think there is any auras that can do more damage than this one, so I used Zealotry, right? And the last link is Leaf Slam with faster attack. I am using this as my movement skill. The Scepter have relatively decent attack speed. If you have enough resistance, you can even craft attack speed on your suffixes, so it moved faster and faster attack. And then last one is Petrified Blood. So Petrified Blood allow us to stay on low life, so we benefit all the time from the Pain Attunement. Right, on the skill tree, I would not go through all the skill tree. I would, but I would do some notable things. First of all, again, tattoo every note, right? Second, the keystone that we are taking is Lethe Shade, so it has to deal with damage over time. Pain Attunement for more damage. On low life, we always are on low life. Supreme Ostentation here, because we use the Elegant Hubris Timeless Jewel. Commemorate Caspiro. You need Caspiro to get the exact Supreme Ostentation keystone, so you don't worry about attribute. So we can tattoo the whole skill tree, and we don't need to get dexterity, we don't need to get intelligence, which is a lot harder than it is for this setup, right? So Supreme Ostentation is the best in slot here. We are going for Blood Magic. For we don't worry about mana anymore, and the Agnostic, so we don't need to worry about Energy Shield. Again, because of the ring, we don't want Energy Shield, so we always get stunned. And Nature's Patient. So this is a Cluster Jewel Keystone. Because we are the Ancestral Commander and we have this node, so the action speed cannot be modified and the movement speed cannot be modified to below base value. So pretty much the downside of less movement speed penalty here is nothing, right? So you don't need to worry about this one. We can ignore it entirely. So it just gives me 1% less damage per Grasping Vine and 2% chance to deal double damage per Grasping Vine. So this thing actually works really well with the Inextricable Fate. The Inextricable Fate also give you an additional 10 Grasping Vine. They are separated, so you can have a total of 20. 20, those are going to give you this bonus. They're going to give you 20% less damage taken and 40% chance to deal double damage. Applies to every spell that you have, so that is 40% more damage, more or less. Approximately is 40% more damage. If you remember, I have a Flask with 51% chance to avoid being shocked. Now I have a 49% chance to avoid being shocked jewel here. This helped me to get 100% chance to avoid being shocked, and so I don't need to worry about being shocked anymore. Ignite, I already am immune from the corruption from the ring. And Freeze and Chill, we cannot get Freeze and Chill technically because of Toughened Skin. Action speed, movement speed cannot be slowed, right? So we deal with all the elemental ailments. This area is for Light of Meaning. You can do cold damage, you can do fire damage, just buy the cheaper one of them. And then Unnatural Instinct here. This combo will give a lot of damage, just a lot of damage in general. This jewel, you can try to find this jewel on the market. You don't worry about any of the stat, by the way. Technically, this does give me a 14% cold damage. I don't need the 1% maximum cold resistance because it is just extra. I am having 91% resistance here. So I don't need this one, but you don't care about the stat, the actual stat of the jewels. You should look for a jewel that has corrupted blood, immunity, and hinder immunity, and it will just be one slot. It will help you to be immune to both, so you save the passive point that you spend, that you could have spent on the mastery protection mastery here. And last but not least, actually the core item. Blood Notch give a lot of recoup. Higher roll is better. I'm having a almost minimum roll here, but it's good enough. And then Immutable Force. So this allows our character to still be moving when we actually get stunned, because it reduced the stun time to like smaller than a fraction of a second. So basically you get stunned, but your recovery is so fast you don't even stop moving. So Immutable Force, mandatory for the build. Blood Notch, pretty much mandatory for the build because it gives a lot of recoup, because every single hit is stunning you, so it will always give you a lot of recoup, right? A lot of life recovery. Other than that, all the mastery you can check out in the POB. But important ones are this one, 25% chance to invert enemy resistance. You don't need to have this, but if you have this, it's pretty nice, because I have this because I have the endurance charge note in here, so I get it. Spell damage is also nice for 2 points, so I get this one. But if you don't have this one, it's not the end of the world. If you don't have okay, for the timeless jewel, by the way, you should look for gain 1 endurance charge per second. I think this is the most important one. This is the best way to sustain endurance charges all the time. Insane reliability. Insane reliability. Okay, that is the word. This one is recoup. This one actually you don't need to take early. This one is actually very good for mapping, because there's a lot of content where you struggle with damage with a rare. And in most of the cases, that rare probably have some regen. So if you have this one, and maybe you can sock it in, instead of the Purifying Flame, you can do Frost Bomb, which reduce the enemy's regen, and they would never regen, basically. So if you deal with those situations, this can be very good. So I keep this mastery here. This one is actually not that important because we already have almost curse immune from the Flask and the Consecrated Ground, but I still take it. If you want to, you can remove it. And last but not least, it is this mastery. No, actually, I think the one that is important is here. Okay. Life mastery, you count as on low life at 55%. So this basically gives you 10% more effective HP. Very, very nice, right? So items already, skill already, and tree already. So yeah, I think that is everything. So if you want to check out the gameplay, some of the showcase, especially like Simulacrum AFK stuff, you can check out my previous videos. I also have actually all of them are worse version than this one. This do Simulacrum faster than everything that I've shown. So hey, regardless, the video is long enough. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoy. And as usual, if you enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.